7:14 a.m. You're sitting at a kitchen table that isn't yours yet. Rental, third one since you were 26. The lease renews in April and you haven't decided if you're staying. Not because you can't afford it, but because you're not sure staying is the same as choosing. On your phone, a banking app. The balance is $3,200, not after a large purchase, not after a bill came out. Just the number on a Tuesday morning with nothing unusual happening. You made $68,000 last year. The year before, $61,000. You've had raises. You've had promotions with words attached to them. You've had moments in your late 20s where the number felt like the beginning of something. And yet, $3,200. Somewhere between 22 and 33, the years passed without the wealth. The money moved through you, rent, car, food, travel, the things that felt like living. And you are 33 years old, and the number on the screen is $3,200, and you don't panic. That's what concerns you, that you don't panic. Because somewhere in the last decade, you made peace with the ceiling. You told yourself the story that everyone tells themselves, that you're fine, that you're just getting started, that the wealth-building part comes later. And later kept arriving, and the number stayed approximately the same. This morning, you're not looking away. Not because the number is unbearable, because you finally decided that the story you've been telling yourself is more expensive than the truth. This is what it looks like when someone decides to start, not at 22, when everything was cheaper and the future still felt infinite and mistakes had no compounding cost. At 33, with history, with obligations, with a specific number on a specific screen that is asking a question you're finally ready to answer. By the end of this, you'll understand exactly what that number means and what it's going to take to change it. The first thing you do is look at everything, not the version you carry in your head. The approximation, the rounded number, the story that's easier to live inside, the actual version, every account, every card, every loan, every subscription, every automatic payment you set up 2 years ago and stopped thinking about. You pull it all into one place. Assets, $3,200 in checking. A retirement account from a job you left in 2021, $14,800, sitting untouched and mostly uninvested, defaulted into a money market fund that has barely kept pace with inflation. A car worth $9,000. You owe $11,400 on it. Liabilities, the car loan, student debt, $28,000 on an income-based repayment plan you enrolled in so long ago, the monthly payment feels like a utility bill rather than a debt. A credit card at 24.99%, APR with $4,400 on it. Another at 19.99% with $1,800. A personal loan at $3,200 from 2021. Net worth, negative $26,800. You write it down. You don't close the notebook. You don't renegotiate the number to make it more comfortable. You let it sit on the page and be what it is. This is the step most people skip. They go looking for investment strategies before they know what the battlefield actually looks like. They optimize one corner while the rest of the structure deteriorates. They feel productive while the interest compounds silently in the background. The audit is not punishment. It is the first honest thing. You cannot build on a foundation you refuse to look at. You cannot fix a leak you've agreed to stop noticing. The number is negative $26,800. It's written down. It's real. Everything that follows is built on that number being true. Here is what starting in your 30s actually cost you. If you had invested $400 a month starting at 22, nothing aggressive, a contribution most entry-level salaries could have supported with basic discipline. At an average 8% annual return, compounding annually, you would be entering your 33rd year with approximately $74,000 in invested assets, growing, without effort, just time. You don't have that. That is the honest cost of the last decade. Not a moral position, not a judgment, a mathematical statement. The compound interest that could have been working for you was instead working for your creditors and your landlords in the version of you that kept choosing now over later. You can't recover those years. They are gone. This is not the part of the video where you're told it doesn't matter. It matters, and it is also not the end of the story. Here is what starting in your 30s does not cost you. Your income trajectory. The decade between 30 and 45 is, in most professional careers, the period of steepest earning growth. Skills compound, reputation compounds. Domain expertise becomes scarce and therefore expensive. The version of you that is 33 is, in pure income-generating terms, the most capable version you've ever been. At 22, you had time and no money. At 33, you have both time remaining and, for the first time, real access to income. At $1,000 per month invested from age 33 to 65, 32 years. At 8% annual return, approximately $1.7 million. At $1,500 per month, approximately $2.5 million. The window is not closed, it is closing, which means the only decision is what you do with the time that remains. Before a single dollar goes into the market, you get the sequence right. The order of operations matters more than the amount. You can save aggressively and still build on broken ground. The sequence determines whether the foundation holds when something goes wrong, and something always goes wrong. First, the debt hierarchy. Not all debt is the same problem. High-interest consumer debt, anything above 8 or 9%, is a negative investment. Every dollar sitting against a 24.99% APR credit card is losing 24.99% annually. No index fund reliably beats that. No portfolio you build right now will outperform the guaranteed return of eliminating that rate. You pay the high-interest balances in order of rate. Highest first, regardless of balance size. The student debt and the car loan stay on their current payment schedules. You don't overpay them. You don't make peace with them either. They are managed, not ignored. The credit cards go first. You find the margin, the gap between income and essential expenses, and you direct it entirely at the highest rate until it's gone. Then the next. Second, the buffer. 3 months of essential expenses. Liquid. In a high-yield savings account that earns something while it sits. This is not an emergency fund you draw from when a concert you want to attend sells out and you tell yourself you'll rebuild it next month. This is the single mechanism that separates a setback from a collapse. One unexpected car repair, one medical bill, one slow month at work. Without the buffer, you return to the cleared credit card. The progress erases itself. You start over. You build the buffer in parallel with the debt elimination, not after, simultaneously. A smaller allocation, but present, growing, protected. Third, the first investment vehicle. Once the high-interest debt is cleared and the buffer is funded, the first investable dollar goes into a tax-advantaged account. If your employer offers a 401k with a match, you contribute up to the match before anything else. The match is a 50 to 100% immediate return. No investment in the market comes with a guaranteed return of that magnitude. You take it, non-negotiable. Beyond the match, a Roth IRA, funded annually, invested in low-cost index funds, not individual stocks, not options, not whatever has moved most this quarter. Broad market exposure, low fees, long time horizon. This is the entire foundation. 3 moves, sequenced correctly. No complexity required at this stage. No strategy more sophisticated than this. The people who build real wealth starting in their 30s are not the ones with the most elaborate plan. They are the ones who got the sequence right before they got clever. You are entering the most financially productive decade of your life. That is not sentiment. That is structure. Between 30 and 45, most professional careers experience the sharpest rise in earning power they will ever see. Titles accumulate. Networks densify. Reputation does work that your skills no longer have to do alone. The market pays a premium for the kind of competence that only comes from having done the thing repeatedly and survived the outcomes. Most people consume this window. The income rises, genuinely, measurably, and the lifestyle rises to meet it. The apartment gets larger, the car gets newer, the vacations get longer, the wardrobe upgrades incrementally. None of these things feel like a decision. They feel like what happens when you finally start earning what you're worth, and the net worth barely moves, because the mechanism is not the amount you earn. It is the gap between what you earn and what you spend. Income without margin is a performance, not a position. You can earn $120,000 a year and build nothing if $119,000 of it moves through you and into the economy. The people who exit the leverage window with real assets are the ones who treated every income increase as a capital event before they treated it as permission. The rule: when income rises, the first allocation of the increase goes to investment, before the lifestyle expands to absorb it, before the checking account grows comfortable enough that the excess stops feeling like excess, automated, invisible, non-negotiable. Every raise, a percentage increase in the monthly investment contribution, executed the same month. Every bonus, split. A portion to investment, a portion honestly to live, because deprivation is not a strategy. Sustainability is. And only sustainability works across 30 years. Every job change, if the income jumps, the lifestyle stays flat for 6 months while the delta goes directly to work. This is not radical frugality. You are not eating rice in the dark. You are choosing where growth goes before the automatic mechanisms of modern life choose for you. The leverage window does not stay open indefinitely. At some point in your mid-40s, income growth flattens for most people. Fixed costs rise. Family, healthcare, obligations that didn't exist in your 30s. The period where you can earn significantly more than you need to spend with a lifestyle that hasn't yet calcified into its permanent shape is bounded. You are inside it now. What you build in this window is what you compound for the next 20 years. Somewhere in the third year, the math changes. Not suddenly, not dramatically, but the investments have been running long enough that the returns on the returns are now visible in the quarterly statements. The compound curve has found its angle. You increase the contribution. Not because a calculator told you to, because you've watched the mechanism work long enough to understand from the inside what you're actually building. You begin to see purchases differently, not as prices, as conversions. You hold an $800 purchase in your mind and see, without effort, what $800 working at 8% for 15 years becomes. The math runs automatically. You don't do it on purpose. It's just there now. Some purchases survive the conversion. Most of them still make sense. You're not building a prison. You're building a lens. By year 4, the invested assets are generating annual returns that, in dollar terms, approach what you were contributing when you first started. The money is producing nearly as much as you're putting in. By year 5, in a reasonable market, the returns exceed the contributions. The capital is working harder than you are. This is the threshold. This is what the first 3 years were for. Not the balance, the mechanism, the engine running, the curve holding its angle. You don't celebrate. You reinvest. You raise the contribution. You let the decade run. Nobody tells you about this part. The accounts are growing. The debt is gone. The buffer has absorbed 3 things that would have derailed you 4 years ago. And each time, nothing collapsed. You rebuilt the buffer. The investments kept running. The plan held. And in the place where the financial anxiety used to live, the low hum, the weight that arrived every time a large bill came, and you weren't sure if the timing was right, the feeling of fragility you carried through your late 20s like a second job, there is something quieter. Not safety exactly, not comfort, margin. And margin changes how you make decisions. You take a professional risk you would not have taken before, because the downside is manageable now, and the upside is real, and the calculation is no longer survival versus growth. You say no to an obligation that would have cost you money you didn't feel you could refuse. You stay in a negotiation longer because you can afford the conversation to go wrong. The wealth isn't arrived, but the thinking has reorganized. This is the part that can't be charted. The internal shift that happens when a person stops being managed by their financial position and starts managing from it. It doesn't happen the day the net worth turns positive. It happens gradually, across decisions, across months where the plan held when it was supposed to hold, and you noticed, quietly, without ceremony, that it held. And eventually you realized that what you were building was never just a number. You were building a different way of operating inside your own life. The number is the evidence. The life is the point. 7:14 a.m. Same kitchen table. The lease renewed 2 years ago. You chose to stay, not because you had to, not because moving felt like too much, but because it was the decision that made the most sense when you ran the numbers with a clear head and nothing panicking underneath them. On your phone, the same banking app. The number is different. Not because the years between 22 and 33 came back. They didn't. That compound growth is still gone. Those 120 months still belong to the past, but the number on the screen is moving now. Quarterly, annually, quietly, without drama, in a direction you chose. You started at 33 with a negative net worth in a banking app showing $3,200 in checking and a lease you hadn't decided whether to renew. You didn't wait for a better starting point. You built from the one you had. The number is different now, and so are you.